She don't like her eggs all runny. She looks down her nose at money. She gets it on like the Easter bunny. She's my baby, I'm her honey. I'm never gonna let her go.
Cheryl mentioned that you're a writer.
I don't do that anymore.
Stuck for inspiration?
I'm stuck between wanting to do something and not wanting to do anything at all. Where are you now?
Is everything all right? Wow, Seamus, that's a proper film. It's a filmmaker's film. I mean, yeah.
Thank you.
It's been a long time since. And also, since I've seen a proper film, it's also, I mean, it's great to be talking about one of my favourite films I've seen in a long time with one of my favourite people, Mr. Seamus McGarvey.
Well, it's great to be here, Angus, and thanks for everyone coming along and seeing it in this space. It's the perfect amount of people to see it in an intimate environment.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, sort of first things first, you know, I know you've known Lynn for forever, really, going back to your Glasgow days, and short films, and of course, longer films. We need to talk about Kevin, another favourite. So, how did shooting this one come about? I mean, also know, how did you get such a juicy job?
I know. I mean, over the moon to get asked to do a film, any film, but particularly one with a friend and one with such an extraordinary script. And Lynn and I were actually prepping a different film when she got sent the script for this by Martin Scorsese and Jennifer Lawrence. And she said, well, this one is the one that's going to happen. Are you up for it? And I loved the script. But more importantly, I loved how Lynn was going to approach it, because it's not just the script with Lynn ever. It's her vaulting photographic ambition and psychological ambition, and just the way that she sort of leaps into the cinema of the page, and that is what distinguishes her as a really great cinema poet, I think, because the way she works is, it's almost like being in a seance when you're working with Lynn.
With her leading that seance?
Or her ghosts, or everyone else's.
And everybody else, yes.
And everyone else's. I mean, that's the thing. It's not an idle metaphor. No. She really does invoke the phantasmagorical in her work.
Psychic filmmaking.
Well, it is. It's like stitching an audience into the drama through things other than words, and that sort of osmotic pull that happens when you see her films, and I don't know how it happens, but it sort of does, and the corollary of being on set, and there is a kind of madness of, you know, it's like a divining rod of emotions. This camera, which I've often thought of as a psychic instrument anyway, because it's got the power of dreams. The camera, the lens, the kind of the silence. There's something weirdly sacred and ritualistic about being on a film set. And when you put a camera down there, and the madness and the noise stops when the clapperboard goes on.
But I mean, all that combined with your long-term friendship, and that it must create some amazing dynamics on set in terms of, I mean, it must be for some of the shorthand you have between each other, and I think also, you know, just in terms of, there must be such a freedom that allows you to just create. Also quite frightening for the producers.
Well, we were lucky that we had at the epicenter really lovely producers. Maybe not on the periphery, but and he never worked again. Anyway, there is that lovely thing about going into the unknown, knowing that you've got a script, but that's only the beginning, and also that sort of elasticity in knowing that you can do something creative when you're left to your own devices with a team of people.
Going a bit feral, off-piste and feral.
Well, feral is where it's at. It should be, because feral is where imagination exists, and feral is where you discover new things, that the 1 + 1 = 3 of making stuff with other people, which in the communal notion of filmmaking, which filmmaking is, this centipede on overtime, that we make stuff that no individual could make alone.
And I think that what's rather wonderful, what seems to be happening a little bit more these days, is that feralness is being allowed to show itself a bit more than it has been in terms of studios and films like this give people confidence.
Well, I've noticed that lately, that there's been such exciting work happening at the minute in the independent sphere realm, but that is leaking into bigger budget films, that we're seeing some sort of bravery but individual expression. And I'm not a great fan of auteurism necessarily, but expression is really to be encouraged, instead of people writing in rooms all together, thousands of them, with a million voices contributing to a film. A film like this, its low budget nature encourages a smaller, more compact visual approach and psychic approach.
And you mentioned that this is adapted from a book, and from what I understand, the book is it's not scripted like this necessarily. Was this scripted? Are we reading the script, or are we seeing the script
we're not
here,
seeing
or was it found more in the process of the making?
It was definitely found. I mean, what you see here is the amalgam of all the contributions of all the people who worked on the film, the editor, the Lynn herself, who sees a script in a way that no one else can, really. And it ultimately, when all those contributions come to bear on something and it becomes kind of distilled, and I mean, shoehorned is the wrong word, but it sort of is shoehorned and then ultimately sculpted into something more palatable, like you see here, if you could call it that. But it certainly is a sort of a layering. It's like a palimpsest of multiple ideas from lots of people that then gets made into something through a director's eye, because they are the people who see it through from start to finish. So ultimately, those kaleidoscopic ideas become unified. And that's the lovely thing, because cinema is kaleidoscopic in its nature, but you feel that it's the screen has the authority of oneness, but ultimately it's like a collision of lots of different ideas, but hopefully they become streamlined. But when it's a film about madness and mental disturbance, and about the shifting nature of what's real and what's true and what's love and what's not, then it gets crazy. And that was what was trying to be portrayed. And I think that the nature of the film, the making of the film, kind of led into what you see on the screen. There's a a rug pulled from under you-ness of it all.
That's nice. I'll use that one.
I don't know if that's a word. Rug pulled underness.
But yeah, it sits in that sort of that liminal space between sort of sanity and insanity, madness,
Yeah.
unmadness, and you're drifting in, and you're not sure what's real and what isn't, and is, the horse, the Keith Stanfield's character. All of it is happening and isn't happening, and it doesn't really matter. It paints the picture.
Well, that illusion between dream and real is, I mean, it's effectively cinema itself.
Yeah.
You're looking at a flickering dreamscape in the blackness here when you're watching a movie. But I think that we wanted to toy very deliberately with those ideas of shifting between what you think you perceive and what is there and what's in the mind and what the fear. So that led us into certain choices, at that broad stroke choices cinematographically at the top of the film when we were just sitting thinking into the script.
Well, I mean, and I didn't realise until quite recently that Lynn had studied cinematography before she passed to the dark side and did that directing thing. But and therefore, there is a language available to you that may not always be available between director and cinematographer.
Yes.
On a sort of a semi-technical side.
No, of course. I mean, Lynn knows the technique of cinematography inside out. She studied at National before directing, and but it doesn't rule her looking, and it in fact only acts as bedrock, cinematographic bedrock to her directing, which is always through a lens, and it's in her head, but she perceives through the tools of her trade, which is the camera, which is a unique way of looking because it blanks out everything else. And sometimes people who see things in a fractured way can really distill their looking through a camera. It's a beautiful way of saying, oh, that's what we're looking at, or that's what they're looking at, that's what an audience is looking at. It's quite exciting to think about what you see, what you feel, but the eloquence of narrowing that looking into a shot or sequence of them through a lens.
And you made some strong decisions in terms of lenses, in terms of shooting on Ektachrome, in terms of shooting in 133. Which and how was that? Did that just sort of bubble up through?
It bubbled up. Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. And prep is like that. It is like bubbling up. It's like making a cup of tea or making moonshine. It's maybe closer to that.
Yeah.
But it's it is actually about things coming to the surface through conversation. And we quickly realized that we wanted a trajectory of nostalgia and hope in terms of color and the innocence of the frame. That's why we chose Ektachrome. I love Ektachrome, I love Kodak, I love film. And we knew that the color of Ektachrome was exactly what we wanted when Grace and Jackson were starting out in this life and the baby and their new home, and everything had twinkliness and bells, and it was all very exciting. But we wanted that color to have the same, a dichotomy with itself, so that it eventually would become, the color would become almost putrid and ripe to the point of rotten, and that it would go bad. And I think that there is that thing that you're describing about madness and not knowing when things are real or not knowing when it's day or night. And that's why we chose day for night.
I mean, the day for night, it's. I mean, I'm sure there's certain pragmatic reasons as well with 100 ASA stock, but it just there is this kind of there's movie magic, movie night. But,
Yes, La Nuit Américaine, as they call it.
But it brings this really surreal quality that ties into that sort of the blur between reality.
Well, it's an upturning of day and night, of what's real and not. And the thing about the night scenes is we wanted something where movie nights you can't see beyond the light that is lighting the night, so it just feels wrong. Whereas day for night, you see night in dreams, like a surrealist dream, like a nocturne or cyanotype, or the distance of perception. It's forever. Everything's kind of there, and it like goes on forever, and it's fucking terrifying when you can see at night, which you can't in movie night. You only see what's lit. And so that we played with, I used these filters where I burnt candle smoke. We shot in the plain light of day. All our nights were shot in.
And the interiors?
The interiors, we just blacked out the windows and shot, lit it like normal night photography, but graded some of them with the same cyan look. But the night exteriors were all done in full daylight, and we just put optical flats with smoky candles, blackened out, and then I just painted them out with paintbrush or a bit of tissue paper, and you see what you see, and yeah. The sun that you see when Sissy Spacek is walking across with the gun that became a moon through the darkened, blackened filter.
And you were processing in London at CineLab.
Yes, wonderful CineLab.
And obviously, again, another nerve-wracking thing for some, in that for producers who are so used nowadays to be checking things. And you've got a 2 or 3 day turnaround.
Yeah, we were in Canada, in Calgary, and we had to send back to CineLab in London.
There's something quite liberating in a way.
It's wonderful because it's an act of faith.
Yeah, and that brings back that.
Look at me and you, we've got grey hair because we learnt shooting film. Well, we didn't know. You just ring the lab and go, did it come out? But
it gives a deep confidence about your, it just gives you a sort of a deep, super confident approach.
Well, it's a step into the dark.
Trust.
Yeah, exactly. It's trust. It's an act of faith, and you go, I hope it will come out this way, and it probably will, but it may not. And you can't look at a producer who hasn't shot on Ektachrome with it's a narrow latitude.
But there's not very many people who have.
Yeah, well, but the lovely thing is that when you get away with it, and they kind of trust you, it sort of it renders back. Lynn loved it because it rendered back some power that I think has in her as a director, because she said, if it doesn't come out, then we'll reshoot it and it's going to be okay. But it's worth it to do this because we will depict something that you will not be able to do in another way. And that is not just to do with the tactile, structural properties of film or Ektachrome or anything else, or the way you have to light it, or the fuck-ups that may or may not happen, but it's to do with sometimes the happenstance and the happy accidents that occur when you shoot on something that's actually quite volatile.
And speaking of happenstance, there was that lakeside sequence.
Oh, yes.
Which the LA Times highlighted as something rather special.
No, it was just this wee shot that we did. If you remember from the film, there's a shot on a beach, and one of the opening shots of it was looking towards the water. And we'd been shooting somewhere else in the morning, and then this was the afternoon. We set up the shot, and the filters were still in from the morning scene. ND9, maybe a polarizer, and another filter, and a diffusion filter. And suddenly, just before we even set up the shot, there was all this multiple reflections and silhouettes as we exposed for the water sparkling through. And so the water was inhabiting all the silhouettes with double imagery, and it suddenly felt like they were the sparkling souls of people. And Lynn was just like, "What the fuck are you doing there? That's amazing." I was just about to start trying to tilt the filters and get rid of the reflections, and she was like, "No, this is incredible. It's perfect. How did you do that?" I said, "I don't know. It's post-film rationalization, but we can talk about it at the BSC interview with Angus Hudson."
Well, we meant it all along, of course.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
yes.
But total accident, but a beautiful one.
It's the witnessing of an unraveling of years of sort of the norm before going off-piste into the world of. And I mean, and you also, I remember you mentioning, within those long grass, the animalistic wildlife photography aspects, the witnessing, particularly of Jen just doing her thing.
Yeah.
It looks like that she had a fair amount of, freedom to sort of explore her character on the day, to a certain extent, and
that scene with Jen and Rob in the grass was originally going to be a 3-page dialogue scene in the house again, and Lynn was just lying in the field trying to work out. She said, "I don't know, it doesn't feel right to do it in there." And she was sitting having a cigarette, and I just lay down in the field as well, and we're looking at each other, and suddenly it became apparent immediately that that's how we should shoot this scene between two people looking at each other through grass. We had this brilliant camera operator, Chris Chow, and he was doing Steadicam, and we just said, let's just go free-range chickens with the actors. And Jen was really into that. She loved going free-range chicken, and just let them run with it.
And had she been doing her sort of her prowling in other scenes?
Yes, she had.
So it was within character.
It was in, yeah. There was that thing about the animal was prowling around the house and fighting the rats that were in the house, and I don't know, maybe just a bit of loopiness overall. But just the way that the camera moved with Chris, we didn't give him any direction except just circle them and concentrically, and we'll see what comes of it. And he really felt, the operator really felt the actors felt the camera, and it's lovely when you can just sort of do an improvised dance. It was literally a choreography that was improvised.
And was it just one camera?
Yes.
Was the whole show one camera?
Pretty much. Sometimes I would do the big camera, but it was mostly one camera. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, but I like the old cyclops of one camera. But sometimes, like, I'm working with kids at the minute, and it's really useful to have two, with the fugitive nature of kids' performances. But generally speaking, I like the idea of the single eye. I think that there's a focus, and it fits with that idea that this little sort of altar of cinema gets funneled through a single eyeball of the lens. But it's good fun.
I'm going to throw out a question or so.
All right.
Because it's kind of that time.
Yeah.
And do we have a roving mic somewhere? So I see one hand up. And if there comes the roving mic. So there's a second question waiting in, so I can point towards there, and there's a second person there for the other mic. Please.
Hi, Seamus. Thank you and congratulations for that. And yeah, it's always great to have you back with us. Last time, over here.
Oh, sorry, I was like...
The last time we had you was for Mussolini, I think. And obviously on that you had lots of unique techniques and approaches during the series, which, assuming you shot that one before this,
Yes.
was there anything that you took on from that series onto here in terms of your approaches with filtering? Obviously we heard that, but anything else that you took on to this?
There were, I mean, Mussolini we shot digitally, but, you know, I think I don't approach things really that differently digitally. Just the surety of knowing that it came out is the only thing that I like about digital, really. But no, there were different approaches. I mean, I used actually, because I'm a bit of a tart that way, that smoky filter I used on Mussolini, but in a different way. It was more subtle. It was to create a vignette rather than actually blacking out skies and being more aggressive with it that I did on this. But yeah, they were different approaches, really. I think that what I wanted to do with this, and Lynn wanted to do, was have the camera use point of view or subjective use of a camera, but not make it a point of view. So that when we turned the camera on Jennifer, that look had to feel like her POV, but it was looking at her. So it was like a psychic POV while looking at the protagonist. So it felt like outward, but it was looking inwards. So we were looking at the back of her heads and oblique angles on her. But we wanted the camera to feel like it was almost like, you know, that bloke who does the trains, that he looks at the trains and he's like, it's the big wide angle shot. Do you know that fella? I can't remember his name, but he's on the internet. My son watches him. But we wanted the camera to feel like that, but not obviously as wide angle GoPro-y. It was like that she was throwing the camera left and right and kind of lancing it away from you, throwing it away and pulling it back. So it had to feel like that. So that was the camera as a personality. Whereas the Mussolini thing was more about witness, camera as witness. So that's why, you know, different movies shouldn't be talking about it, I suppose. But anyway, it was just different uses.
But you also seem to, you know, occasionally you fall into quite a traditional way of composition and filmmaking, and you get lulled into a false sense of security before they come and sucker punch you.
Right.
Or you come and sucker punch us, the viewer. But, you know, that opening 2-minute 45 static shot with that little 5-second push in at the end.
Yeah, we wanted
that opener is
the opening
brave.
of the film to feel like, we didn't want to say, here's a lovely house, they're moving in, exterior. We wanted it to be inside the house, like a ghostly spectral presence, like the house was breathing and waiting for its victims. And to create a portentous horror movie vibe of like the house is alive. And they're innocently sitting around going, oh, it's going to be wonderful. But yet it's vibrating.
Setting the scene for 2 hours later. And we have there he is. There we go.
Did you check your exposure with digital cameras, or did you just rely on meters, or how did you deal with Ektachrome?
No, just with a meter. The interior and day exterior were all shot Ektachrome, but for some of the day for night and the night, the stuff we did in the forest, Ektachrome I just didn't have the exposure for 100 ASA. So we shot on 5:2:13 and 5:2:19 very occasionally, and graded that stuff. But Darren Ray at CineLab did, and then Adam Inglis at Harbour for the DI, and beautifully graded that. So, but shooting on digital for a number of years, my meter has been a badge of office. I still wear it, but it was really nice to have my meter and actually have to use it. And you have to use it with Ektachrome. You get it wrong, it's curtains.
Is there another hand? There's another hand.
Hi, Seamus. I just wanted to ask about pre-production. Did you get much of a chance to have some fun and experiment and come up with sort of, new and interesting choices? I mean, obviously it was a very interesting choice. So
We did a wee bit of we didn't have much time. I mean, I only had a few weeks of, like 4 weeks of pre-production. We did one test once we decided we were shooting on Ektachrome, and we sent some tests over, and then the day for night we wanted a particular look, so I sent over to Darren, stills and what we wanted to look like. Edward Steichen's cyanotypes and nocturnes were a big sort of inspiration for the day for night, and some of the Slim Aarons, the photographer who took pictures and a lot of backstage pictures in sort of porn movies in Los Angeles in the 70s, was a big influence for the Ektachrome look. So that was, we did one day of testing really, and then we sort of leapt into the light and the dark. We also decided early on, part of the testing was we looked at aspect ratio. So we weren't sure, the producers weren't sure, because Lynn and I both wanted to go Academy 13343, and because we wanted this interiority, this claustrophobia to the frame, this corralling, and it was going to be done in portraiture mostly, in portraits of Grace, Jennifer Lawrence's character. So we wanted, even in landscapes, there to be this sense of sort of restricted horizons and narrowing and crushing vista, crushing of the vista. So I really, I'd never shot 133 before, but I'd been seeing it recently in lots of movies, and Robbie Ryan had shot so beautifully with 133, and Lucas Zal in a couple of his films. So I really wanted to try it, and I thought that it really suited the film, and Lynn wholeheartedly agreed. So yeah, that's why you see the square image-ish.
Any more hands at the moment? How so? No, what was I going to ask? It was actually about the sound design. The sound design, which I sort of joke that 80% of what you see is through your ears, but the sound so often enhances the image, and I think in this respect, it's almost like a character in itself here, and does so much for the cinematography as well. Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right to say that. It is half of it. And Lynn has always been great with sound, and she's always worked with Paul Davies, but also Rafe Birchall, because sound and music go hand in hand. It's not just the sound design, it's the musical kind of juxtapositions that really help certain moments. Ian and Rafe and Paul Davies. But yeah, Lynn's always, we need to talk about Kevin, was the same. She does very evocative collisions of sound.
I know she's got a composer credit as well.
Well, she sang the song that opens it. I mean, that was day one, shot one, slate one, take one. She's like, "Can you take your clothes off, please, Jennifer?" I was like, fucking hell. And then we just sort of went into this scene. That was day one. And then I knew we were working with brave actors who were just sort of throwing caution to the wind.
You know, she absolutely. I mean, it's sort of intimacy into me. I see. You know, it's
Yeah.
sort of it is that. It's an amazing. Yeah, it's very bold. It's a very bold thing.
Yes, well, she wrote that song that opens it with George Vestica and Rafe. George is Nick Cave's guitarist. And so they wanted something, just kick the door down of the house and of the film.
It's great. It's great.
And love will tear us apart
Yes,
at the end.
yes, yeah. Well, oh, come on, somebody. There we go. Hang on, Una.
There was a night shot on the top that was wide with stars.
With what, sorry? Una?
Stars.
Stars, yes. Those stars, because that was the one with the sun stroke moon. But because they were looking at stars in the telescope scene, and Lynn felt that the blackness was too much, so those little pinpoint stars were digitally added. So they were sort of shimmering stars that were digitally added, and they sort of further sell the point that it is night. But I think because the stars were so important to Lynn, that she wanted there to be actual stars in the sky, even if they were painted digitally.
But then there's also that lovely the eye in the sky.
Yeah.
Robert Patterson's, as he's looking through the through the telescope, looking up.
Well, we shot that like through the telescope. Like we just sort of stuck a macro lens and had him poke his eye into it.
Oh, it was great. It was, but it was like one of those old sort of surrealist.
Yeah, it looked like we wanted to evoke the Georges Méliès.
Yes, that's
image of the looking through the telescope. But we just literally stuck the camera on the end of the eyepiece of the thing and put it on macro with the diopter.
Oh, well, it's a magnificent thing, and I'm just going to give one last, another hand.
Was there a lens? There's a shot where Robert's coming out of the house, and it looked like you were soft quite often on the edges, and I was wondering what you were up to there.
Yes, it's my favourite lens, and it's the Petzval 58. We used two Petzval lenses, which the Petzval lenses have this beautiful circular bokeh. They're sharp in the middle, but if you get points of light around it, they kind of swirl. So I shot a lot of Jennifer's close-ups on those when she's thinking or when she's like engaging with people or engaging with herself. That it really feels like, as my mother used to say, there's more in her head than a comb would take out. Because there's this movement in a still image. She's just looking or thinking, but there's this kind of motion or dynamism of swirling, and that's a characteristic of that Petzval lens. It's old glass from the 20s, but it's been rehoused by TLS. I've got two of them, and each one has got its unique. They're like two orphan lenses in my lens box.
And
they're beautiful little runts they are.
And what were the non-runty lenses?
The non-runty ones were slightly runty. They were P Vintage, Panavision.
Okay.
I love Panavision as much as I love Kodak, and they helped us out. They've got a base in Calgary as well, so we shot most of the film with the P Vintage lenses, and those two Petzvals.
Are the P vintage, aren't they sort of old Zeisses?
They're
that have been
ultra
sort of
primes.
Ultra primes.
Yeah,
yes,
I think maybe somebody will rugby tackle me from Panavision afterwards, but they're an adapted
Yes.
early ultra primes.
Yes, very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, well, listen, I think it's time to go to the bar.
Well, thank you so much for coming along and seeing it. It's lovely to see it in the cinema.
It is, and thank
thanks
you,
to you,
Seamus.
Angus.
Thank you.
I just came from the set, so I've got my light meter here. Yay! Long live the light meter.